Huge breaking news today, Nez Nation. The Supreme Court ruled on presidential immunity, and everybody's going absolutely, completely bonkers. I'm going to break down. I kind of decided to really research this thoroughly, do my due diligence. So everything that you need to know about this, what are the implications? Plus, I've got President Trump's response, exactly how he responded to this ruling, everything broken down, simply condensed just for you. Let's get right into it. Okay, so the Supreme Court ruled today, Trump versus United States, substantial immunity for official acts. So everybody's been waiting for this ruling for a while, and the Supreme Court ruled that the former president has significant protection from prosecution for actions taken as part of their official duties while in office. So again, a lot of people have been talking about this. I see a lot of videos, a lot of people online, pundits, influencers, podcasters, etc. But I think this is your one-stop shop. You don't have to go anywhere else because I'm going to break down exactly what does that mean. So it doesn't mean what everybody perhaps thinks it means. A lot of people think, oh, this means the president can get away with murder. No, it doesn't. So look at this right here. This is part of the ruling, and then we're going to break down some of the direct quotes from some of the justices, especially Justice Roberts. No immunity for unofficial acts. So the ruling clarified that this immunity does not extend to actions that are not part of the president's official duties. That's a very, very important distinction. It was a 6-3 decision. Obviously, the 3 liberal judges dissented, sent back to the lower court. Now, this is important because everybody thinks, oh, so the Jack Smith case is denied. Oh, cool. So that's going to be dismissed. Mistrial in Cash Money G's 2020 election. No. Listen to this. This is very important. The Supreme Court did not, I repeat, did not decide if former President Trump is immune from prosecution related to his efforts to overturn the 2020 election results. Instead, they sent this matter back to a lower court for further consideration. So here's Chief Justice the Chief Justice Roberts' clarification. So this is really important to understand because I see a lot of people spiking the football and a lot of, lunkheads like Weasel Schiff saying, oh my God, the president can do whatever he wants now. It's not true. Chief Justice John Roberts emphasized, that's the key word right there, that the president does not have immunity for unofficial acts and highlighted that not everything a president does is considered official. So you can just imagine all the legalese, the semantics. Every argument in a court of law is based on one thing and one thing only: how well somebody can interpret said law, and then how well they can communicate rhetorically, persuasively to a judge, to a court, to a jury, etc., that their interpretation of that law is the one to pay attention to the most and consider. So there's so much ambiguity here. There's nothing final here. And this is what Chief Justice Roberts said. The president enjoys no immunity, quote, from his unofficial acts, and not everything the president does is official. This is what he wrote for the majority. The president is not, above the law. It's very, very important. A lot of people think you're hearing all these radical, extreme left woke mafia lunkheads like Schiff and AOC. He's going to be a dictator. You see, I told you it's all BS. The president is not above the law, but Congress may not criminalize the president's conduct in carrying out responsibilities of the executive branch under the Constitution. And the system of separated powers designed by the framers, I love the constitutional reference here, has always demanded an energetic, independent executive. And then he further went on to say, this is really important, again, because it relates to the truth of what this ruling implicates. The president, therefore, may not be prosecuted for exercising his core constitutional powers, and he is entitled at a minimum to a presumptive immunity from prosecution for all his official acts. The immunity applies equally to all occupants of the Oval Office, regardless of politics, policy, or party. So the weaponization of the Department of Justice and pretty much every branch of government that the corrupt Biden left woke mafia, who we all know Biden's not in control. If anything, it's FLOTUS, Jill Biden, who's not a doctor, by the way. She's an absolute power-hungry lunatic, and the Obama-Clinton consortium. So that's they've done everything. And the sham trial in New York, presided over by Judge Fake Don Juan Merchan, launched by Alvin Do Nothing Bragg and Letitia Big Shame James, is a perfect example of why this ruling is constitutional, it's fair, it's legal, and it's just. Now, regarding Jack Smith, okay, this is important, okay? The question stemmed from Special Jack Smith's federal election interference case in which he charged Trump with conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction of an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights. So that's where that kind of question stemmed from. Those charges stem from Smith's months-long investigation into whether Trump was involved in the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot and any alleged interference in the 2020 election result. Trump pleaded not guilty and argued he should be immune from prosecution from official acts done as the president of the U.S. Justice Soya Sotomayor, joined by Kagan and Ketanji Brown Jackson, all liberal justices, dissented, saying it makes a mockery of the principle foundational to our Constitution and system of government that no man is above the law. But again, if you listen, it's this over-exaggeration hyperbole. Even the justices are corrupt. It's not about that. This is about he still can get tried and prosecuted for unofficial acts. There's many acts that the president engages in that are unofficial. Quote, relying on little more than its own misguided wisdom about the need for, quote, bold and unhesitating action by the president, the court gives former President Trump all the immunity he asked for because our Constitution does not shield a former president from answering for criminal and treasonous acts. I dissent. Justice Clarence Thomas penned a separate occurrence to, quote, highlight another way in which this prosecution may violate our constitutional structure. I think Justice Scalia, who's my favorite justice of all time, I love Anthony Scalia, I think he would approve of this. Let me know, by the way, just a quick question, a quick poll. Who's your favorite justice and who do you dislike the most? Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear what your thoughts are on that. In this case, the Attorney General purported to appoint a private citizen as special counsel, which was actually against the law, to prosecute a former president in behalf of the United States. But I am not sure that any office for special counsel has been established by law, as the Constitution requires. I love the direct deference to the Constitution. This is how our framers had really envisioned how all of these things would ensue, and it's beautiful. By requiring that Congress create the federal offices by law, the Constitution imposes an important check against the president. He cannot create offices at his pleasure. FLOTUS. If there is no law establishing that the office that the special counsel occupies, then he cannot proceed with this prosecution. A private citizen cannot criminally prosecute anyone, let alone a former president. They are serious questions whether the Attorney General has violated that structure by creating an office of the special counsel that has not been established by law. Those questions must be answered. This is so good. I love Clarence Thomas. Those questions must be answered before this prosecution can proceed. We must respect the Constitution's separation of powers in all its forms, else we risk rendering its protection of a liberty a parchment guarantee, he concluded. Smith's case against the former president and its trial have been pending amid High Court's consideration of the issue. Justices heard arguments from Trump attorney John Sauer and Michael Dreeben, a Justice Department attorney representing special counsel, on April 25th, whether the president should have absolute immunity. During those arguments, both liberal and conservative justices focused on the broader implications, which is what they're supposed to do, of the question for future presidents, but raised sharply different concerns. Remember, we've talked about this in the YSL RICO case, in the Fannie Cash Money Jeep case. Anytime any decision is made in any court of law, it sets a precedent for future. So it's this beautiful sort of sequential linkage connecting all of our cases under this beautiful criminal justice system, under our law, under our nation, that everything is inextricably linked, which is so beautiful. So it actually forces and warrants every justice in every case, small, big, large, state, federal, etc., to really, really consider thoroughly and diligently every decision if it abides by the actual law, because they could be setting a precedent that can be used forever ad infinitum. So beautiful. Justice Samuel Alito questioned the repercussions of charging a former president. Quote, now, if an incumbent loses a very close, hotly contested election, knows that a real possible nullity after leaving office is not that the president is going to be able to go off into a peaceful retirement, but that the president may be criminally prosecuted by a bitter political opponent, Alito asked, will that not lead us into, I love this quote right here, will that not lead us into a cycle that destabilizes the functioning of our country as a democracy? And we can look around the world and find countries where we have seen this process where the loser gets thrown in jail. Yeah, it's called banana republics. Alito is 100% right here. Meanwhile, Justice Ketanji Brown, appointed by President Biden, asked if the potential criminal liability is taken off the table, wouldn't there be a significant risk that future presidents would be emboldened to commit crimes with abandon while they're in office? No, because that's called separation of powers, checks and balances. He can still be impeached. There's so many things, especially if it's deemed an unofficial act. You're a Momo. If someone with those kinds of powers, quote, the most powerful person in the world with the greatest amount of authority, could go into office knowing that there would be no potential full penalty for committing crimes, I'm trying to understand what the disincentive is from turning the Oval Office into a seat of criminal activity in this country, she said. Justice Brett Kavanaugh summed up the stakes for the court's decision. This will have huge implications for the presidents. I'm not talking about the present. I'm talking about the future, Kavanaugh said. And then Justice Neil Gorsuch stressed during questioning, quote, we're writing a rule for, yes, the ages. Okay, so just to kind of wrap up and sum up, and then I'm going to show you what Trump's response is. Stick around for that. Here's what this is probably the most important part of the video, because I know this is the juicy stuff, what we all care about here. What does this mean regarding Trump and his time as president of the United States? Let me go through this. So protection for official acts. If the alleged crimes were part of his official duties as president, Trump has substantial immunity from prosecution. This means he cannot be prosecuted for actions deemed as part of his official responsibilities while in office. No protection, however, for unofficial acts, okay? If the alleged crimes were not part of his official duties, Trump does not have immunity. He can be prosecuted for actions considered unofficial or even personal. And here's the big part, even if they occurred while he was president. So you can just imagine the back and forth, the interpretation, the legality, the legalese, the semantical arguments, the rhetorical arguments, the linguistical arguments. This is going to go lower court, higher court, Supreme Court. This is all going to be based on how good, how sharp, how methodical your legal team is and how well they can interpret and apply this law. The key operative word there is interpretation. This is why I think I would have been such an amazing lawyer, because if you're on the side of righteousness and truth, the interpretation is very specific and you can justify that quite plainly and realistically. How many of you think that I should have been a lawyer? Let me know in the comments down below. It's just a kind of a childhood dream of mine. It's always been sort of in the back of my mind. It's all, who knows? I mean, I'm almost 50. Maybe I could still become a lawyer. You guys think I could? I kind of love doing this more. Further legal proceedings. The Supreme Court did not make a final decision on whether Trump's actions related to overturning, this is a biggie, Trump's actions related to overturning the 2020 election results are unofficial or unofficial. This specific question will be reviewed and decided by a lower court. That does not mean that just because it needs to be reviewed and decided by a lower court, it cannot be upped and appealed and headed all the way back to the Supreme Court. It could. So this is a biggie too. Implications for current charges. For any current or future charges, the lower courts will need to determine if the actions in question were part of Trump's official duties. If they are, he'd be immune from prosecution for those actions. If they are not, he could face prosecution. But again, this could go through an entire appeal process. It could go through the appellate courts, the higher courts. It does not mean that this will not reach as high as potentially the grandest court in the land, the Supreme Court of the United States. Here's what Trump said. Well, let me see. His first, I want to go to his first post on Truth Social. By the way, I'm Professor Nez, at Professor Nez on Truth Social. Follow me there. Big win for our Constitution and democracy. Proud to be an American. That was his very, very first post on Truth Social. And then he said, today's historic decision by the Supreme Court should end all of crooked Joe Biden's witch hunts against me, including the New York hoaxes, the Manhattan scam cooked up by Soros-backed DA Alvin Bragg, racist New York Attorney General Tish James's shameless attack on the amazing business that I have built, in the fake Burdorf's case. Proud to be un-American. And then his most recent post, the Supreme Court totally dismantled most of the charges against me. Joe Biden should now call off his dogs. Our country should now be focused on greatness again. What do you guys think of that? I turn this over to you, Nez Nation. I would love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments down below. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this decision. What are your questions too? I'm happy to answer any questions. Let me know again in the comments. If you made it this far, I would highly implore you, sign up for our free newsletter, because I've been getting a lot of emails and messages saying, hey, Nez, I never get your videos. Your sure-proof, fail-safe way is to sign. It's free. Just put your best email in. It's in the pinned comment, links, and description down below. All you got to do is click on that link, give us your best email, and you're in. We don't spam. I never share your email with any third party. That's not the Nez Nation way. Become a Nez Nation Insider. It's free. Check out these videos coming up on the screen right now. Follow, subscribe, and as always, may God bless you, and may God bless America. I'll see you soon.